Hello and welcome back to the VolReport Show. I'm Ryan Sylvia with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And as Tennessee hosts its final SEC home game of the season, I'm joined by Jason Stamm of Bulldog Blitz, the Mississippi State Rivals site over at BulldogBlitz.com. Jason, how you doing?
I'm great, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for hopping on. I guess let's start with kind of an overarching look at what Mississippi State's done this season. Has this been below expectations? Obviously, not the greatest start to the Jeff Lebby era, or is this kind of what you figured the first year would look like with a lot of struggles?
Well, there's a lot to that. I don't think it's a simple, yes, this is where they should be or they shouldn't be. So it all goes back to Mike Leach. His unexpected death, really, I guess, 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years ago, it just threw the whole program, I wouldn't say in disarray, but it threw it for a loop. So, they had an interim coach last year, had an athletic director change, and he brought in his guy, and that's Jeff Lebby. So they're trying to just get some footing at this point. Mike Leach had that program in a pretty good spot. He was able to do that obviously multiple places: Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State. They were pretty successful the few years that Mike Leach was there, and so it was just very unexpected. You can't predict a death like that, right? When can you ever do that? So, if anything, like I said, they're just trying to get their footing. Jeff Lebby, has extensive coordinator experience, but this is his really first big foray into a spot like this. So, I don't think any reasonable fan expected them to do a lot. I don't know if they thought they would be, over in the SEC so far, 2 wins overall. But again, it's hard to expect too much. They've had some injuries that have really derailed any kind of positivity they had their early season. So, I think there's glimmers of hope. Michael Van Buren has showed some flashes as he's gotten more comfortable. I mean, the guy's a true freshman, and I think it gets lost a lot. 4-star kid coming out of high school, according to Rivals, but still a true freshman. So, he's gonna have those mistakes, and I think, he was just thrown into it as he's gotten comfortable. That's been one good sign. So there are good signs to come. It's just they've been really hard to find really here and there. And, there have been a lot of things that have gone against them, especially on the injury front. You've got somebody like Creed Whitmore, who, opted out the rest of the season, already looking for, going somewhere else. So there's some other things like that have also kind of been little chips here and there. But overall, I think they've got some pieces to build with. They've got a good recruiting class coming in. They're trying to wrap that up, obviously, but I think there are pieces there to build on, and it's going to be a slow build. I don't think anybody administration expects even Jeff Lebby to just immediately turn it around next year. I think this is probably at least a 3-year process. So by year 3, you hope that they're at least in contention to get to a bowl game by that point.
You mentioned Van Buren. Where's the biggest growth for him been since he's had to take over this offense?
A lot of it's just his decision making. He's got great athleticism. He can launch the ball. There's a reason why he was a 4-star kid out of high school. But he made some questionable moves or questionable decisions, I guess, the first couple games. But then, he played. You talk about, it's going to really, you talk about getting really tested. Mississippi State's schedule was incredible there for a stretch. They played Texas, Georgia, Texas A&M back-to-back games, and really held their own in all 3. None of those 3 were over till the fourth quarter. So when you go against defenses like that, you grow up pretty quick. You're either going to quickly learn and get better from your mistakes, or you're going to quickly take a dive. And he has bounced back each game, and I do feel like he's gotten better each game. The whole team kind of just laid a big egg against Arkansas. That was ugly. But other than that, it's been a lot of progress, and I think Van Buren himself has shown a lot of progress. really just in his decision making. And, when the pressure's on, if you got nobody open, throw it away. Like, there's no reason to make something there when there's nothing there. And those are just things you learn when you go on. You keep getting experience, you keep getting practice and reps, and you eventually hope that they learn that. And I do think he's getting there. He's making a lot better decisions. Having a game like UMass, I think, also helps confidence wise. He had a couple of good plays in that game as well that help. So I think he's getting there, but again, he's a work in progress for sure.
So what was the difference in that 3 stretch of games compared to a game like the one at Arkansas, even that Florida game earlier in the year, that Toledo game earlier in the year? What has there been, like, 1 or 2 things that it's like, yeah, well, when they're doing that, they're staying competitive, but when they're not doing that, then you see those Arkansas type of results?
I don't know, because you go back, you said Florida and Toledo. Of course, Blake Shapen was the quarterback at that point.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody ever thought Blake Shapen was going to be this big world beater, but he came from Baylor, did have some experience. I think they were hoping he would kind of be that bridge. I don't know as Michael Viren has ever been like, I've never heard anybody say like, he's the guy, he's the future. He's become the future at this point, but it was still kind of, Blake Shapen was kind of seen as kind of a bridge there to Van Buren, or, if they could get somebody, recruiting wise, which they have, but, he got hurt against Florida. That just changed everything offensively when Shapen went down. He was out for the rest of the season when he's already had surgery for his shoulder. But, and they've had some injuries running back wise. So it's been kind of a running back by committee group. Davon Booth, I think, has shown some flashes. Kevon Lee was out for a few games there. Johnny Daniels is mixed in pretty good. So I feel like when they get the running game going, offensive line has had its struggles here and there. Part of that, again, going back to a quarterback that's not quite there decision-making wise yet. So, with a lot of offenses, a lot of it rides on your quarterback. And when Van Buren, goes through his progressions, he's smart about holding on to the ball, getting rid of the ball. That's where you see, I think, that's what they did in those 3 games. That stretch, Texas, Georgia, A&M. He was being much smarter with the ball. He's got a pretty good thing going on with Seydou Traore, his big tight end. I think that helps keep Kevin Coleman. They've got a connection there that has helped. So I don't know. I don't know if there's one thing past, I would say, the obvious of Van Buren. Like when he's smart, he's making good decisions, then he's going to keep them in about any game.
What would you say the best position group is on this team, offense and defense? Where's the strength in kind of numbers on this squad?
Early in the season, I would have said wide receiver. And if you include Traore at tight end, maybe you still make that case. But again, the running back depth, I think, has really been good for them the last few weeks. They got Kevon Lee back now, so you add him back to Daniels and Booth. Booth is really, I feel like the one who's taken the biggest leap these last few games. He really benefited from Lee being out there for that stretch with injury. So I think on offense, it's got to be the running backs. Defense wise, I don't know. Isaac Smith, probably their strength on its safety, but they've got a lot of holes. They've really struggled against the run, which is weird because early on in the season, I did other interviews with a couple of their sites. I think it was like Arizona State. And at that point, it was they were really struggling against the pass, and it's kind of flipped here in the last few games. And if you look at the overall stats, even it's the running game is what they've really had trouble stopping. So. They have a couple of pieces. Again, Smith, their leading tackler. Stone Blanton is a pretty good piece at linebacker that, will be in on most tackles, does a really good job reading. They really struggle up front, I think is probably where they've really, they had 2 sacks against UMass. That put them at 7 sacks on the season, if that tells you anything. So I think I heard a stat where I don't remember who they were tied with, but they were tied for the least amount of sacks of any FBS program through the first 8 games. So they got 2 against UMass. They're padding that sack total, but there just hasn't been any push up front. So it's really hard to say anywhere on defense is a strength. They have a couple of individuals I think that are good, but they're just not. They haven't been able to get much push up front pretty much all season, and that's the biggest reason why you only have 7 sacks in 9 games now.
I think Tennessee fans will like to hear that. It's been an offensive line for Tennessee that's had a little bit of struggles. They've played better as of recent. I thought that was probably their best game against Kentucky last week, but definitely probably the weak link of Tennessee is that offensive line. So that's should be something that makes Tennessee fans happy, is that it's a Mississippi State squad that isn't going to come at them with the Alabama, Georgia level defensive line that they'll see this year. What is Mississippi State going to have to do to win this game, though? If there's one area, what are they going to have to accomplish to have a chance to win this one?
Well, defense has really struggled to get a ton of stops. Like I said, they got 7 sacks on the season. That's not real great. They're going to have to get, at least a couple turnovers, I think. And then offensive wise, it really comes down to Van Buren. I mean, so much is riding on that guy. He's got a couple of pieces. Kevin Coleman is a really, really good receiver. He's a guy who, has that ability, that big play ability that can break one anytime. Traore is just a big target. I think what is Traore? 6'5"? I mean, he's a pretty big target. So, he's got pretty good hands. He's not like a, all SEC tight end by any stretch. I'm not saying that, but he's a pretty, he's a good, reliable target that they've got a pretty good relationship with. So, it's been the running game. Like I said, Davon Booth has gotten better. But so much just comes down to Van Buren. If he can make good decisions, can hold on to the ball, he had some turnovers early on as well. Again, I think a lot of that was just being rattled. Literally just got thrown in, right? I mean, it was not. Yeah. This was Shapen's team. Like the plan was for Shapen to start all season. So he's gotten more comfortable with the offense. He's gotten more comfortable with his checks. So I think as he's gotten comfortable, the offense seems to have, shown some steps, minus the Arkansas game, and that wasn't as much an offense. That was defense that just completely laid down in that game, but. Defense got a couple of stops. Van Buren has to play smart, and I think they can stay in the game. I mean, like I said, they've done that. It will not surprise me at all if they stay in this game with Tennessee, because I've seen them do it against Texas, A&M, and Georgia, and they were not expected to hang those 3. Probably shouldn't have at all, and they did. So the potential is there. They can do it. Whether they do it, obviously, that's another thing. But a lot has to go right. They got to play near perfect ball to stay in this game, I think.
So that's what needs to happen. What do you think is going to happen, though? How do you think this one plays out?
I do think, when you're 2-7, they got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right? The bowl game's way out the window. That left weeks ago, right? Even before they officially got out of it with that last loss, that 7th loss. But you see glimpses, you see what they can do against those 3, that stretch that we've mentioned so many times already. I think they'll stay in it. I've watched Tennessee enough past few weeks to know that they've struggled in the first half. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll see Mississippi State keep it close. I don't know if they'll have a lead, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I can see Tennessee pulling away late, as they tend to have done this season. So, as far as a score prediction, I think Tennessee still will probably put up, at least 35. My guess is probably something like a 38-24 game, something like that, 38-21, something like that.
That would I think Mississippi State fans should be happy with that, though, because no team scored 20 on Tennessee yet. So that would be a first this season if Mississippi State's able to pull that off. Jason, thank you, though. Where can everyone find your work as they prepare for game day?
Yeah, so BulldogBlitz.com. I'll be in Knoxville this weekend, so plenty of coverage coming from the Mississippi State side over at BulldogBlitz.com.
All right. Well, if you want to be the smartest at the tailgate on Saturday and know everything that's going on the Mississippi State side of things, make sure you guys go check that out. Jason, I'll see you in Knoxville on Saturday. Links to everything everyone needs is in the description. Thank you for watching.